we're starting off something brand new, right? Have you guys ever seen a chart, seen one of those charts, progress charts? If it's a weight loss chart, you're hoping it goes down, right? If it's like, hey, it's my stocks, you want them to go. Does anyone have stocks in here? You guys own stocks? All right, yeah. Invest in stocks, maybe some cryptocurrency, NFTs. I mean, you do what you want, okay? But, all right, we want to look at progress. Like we look at things like this and we want to see progress. I got a generic one because no one knows what these things are supposed to look like. But we want to see progress. We want to see things moving the way they're supposed to be, right? If you're looking at something, hey, I want this to be improving. I want it to be going well. I want it to be in the positive. I want things to look at it. And we look at these sort of things to look for like projections of the future. Okay, what does this look like if I do well? What does this look like if things are going the way they're supposed to be going? And I think we'd all agree on this. Just nod your head yes if this is like correct of you. You want to be successful. Yes? Can we say yes, I do? Perfect. All right, 3 of you want to be successful. The rest of you? What? Yeah, she was not one of the 3 yeses that I counted. Okay, but right, most of us want to be successful. We want to look out ahead and say, and I want to be able to say that the next 2 years of my life, the next 10 years of my life, the next 2 months of my life, whatever that is, I want it to be like successful. And I want to be able to look at the projection of where I'm going and say, yes, that's where I want to end up. And even better if I can look at that and say, okay, looking ahead, this is the path that I have to be on, right? Some of you guys are about to graduate, and you're saying, okay, in order to get into the college that I want, or get into this program that I want to be into, or whatever career path I want to take, this is what I have to do. Whether it's, hey, I got to get this certain score in the ACT, my GPA is got to be here, or I have to pass this certification in order to get into this program. Whatever that is, you have a path that you're saying, these are the things I need to do to get to where I'm going. And it's always better to have those benchmarks to look out ahead and say, this is what I have to hit. This is the next bar I have to meet. This is the next step that I need to take. And we look at life, right? And I think you could even look at the people around you that are telling you what success looks like, what you should be aiming for, and we can very easily get a picture of what our culture says is a successful life, a life that has meaning, a life that has value, a life that you are winning at. All right, and we can look at things like, hey, financial stability. I want to not be in dire straits with my finances. If I could be rich, fantastic. If I could be just at a good level, that's good, right? And that we look at the amount of money someone has as a benchmark of their success a little bit as a culture, right? That if you have more, you're seen as doing better. And then things like, hey, I want to have good relationships. That's not a bad thing, right? If you say, hey, they have good, healthy relationships with everyone around them. That's good, right? We see that as a successful thing. Things like, hey, I want to travel, I want to do these things. There's a lot of stuff that we look at. These are signs of success. Someone that is able to travel the world and see all these places that they want to do, we could see that as successful. I want to be healthy, right? I want to not have sickness in my life. Again, these are not necessarily bad things, right? They're benchmarks of, hey, if I'm healthy, relatively good in my financial situation, I got to travel and see the world, and I have good relationships. Most of our world would say, hey, life is going well for you. You're successful at life. And we could throw in a bunch of other things. There's things that you may say, hey, these are the benchmarks for my life that I want to have. And the issue that we come to, though, right, is there's a formula that our culture says this is what makes you successful. And if we're honest, our inner desire is probably for that same thing. Again, those things aren't necessarily evil. They're not necessarily bad. But it's a much different picture than the model of success that Jesus gives us. And as someone who says they follow him, if you're someone who says that I follow Christ and my life is his, our goal should be to follow his path, his benchmarks of success, his plan and the projections, rather than what our culture says, what our heart tells us, right? And here's the problem in that. There's another chart. It looks a lot like this. Right? It's flipped. It's the complete opposite. And that's more so what Jesus' path looks like. And it's hard because you have these inner longings in you that say, what the world around me tells me, what my family, what my friends, what those that I love and care about, what those people are saying is like successful isn't what Jesus says is. Again, it doesn't make your family bad. It doesn't make, like my mom, when I was graduating from like college, I was like, hey, I have a job. She's like, that's good. Are you getting paid? I'm like, yeah, well, that's the point of a job. I'm getting paid. Like, they want good things for you. It's not necessarily bad, but we have to stop a minute and say, am I running after the right things? Am I looking at these benchmarks? Am I hitting these goals for what God says matters in my life, or have I created my own set of standards? And am I going to run after those? And so we have to ask the question, what if what the world sets up for us isn't the right way to do it? Right? What if that isn't the way that I live my life? What if that's the complete wrong things to run after with my entire life? You could spend 70, 80 years, if you're lucky, pouring your life into the absolute wrong things that are not going to fulfill you and leave you empty. And so I would think, right, that we'd want to know, right? You're in here, you're 16, 17, 18, however old you are. You still have, hopefully, 50, 60 years left in your life. And I would hope that your desire is, if I'm headed in the wrong direction now, I want to fix it. I want to reset and go in the right direction, follow the right path that is what I'm made for. And so we're going to be looking at a sermon that Jesus taught. Right? It's probably a very popular thing. If you're new to church, Jesus spent three years in what is known as his ministry. Like, he was born as baby Jesus, grew up, lived a sinless life, but then really he took 3 years of what a lot of what we see in the New Testament in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is him between when he started his ministry and when he dies, and is raised to live again. And so there's these 3 years that he is basically saying, this is my plan for the world. It's where he lays it out, where he has these 12 guys that are following him. And so we're going to look at kind of one of the first things he does. We're going to look at this and really look at, okay, he's going to flip everything on its head of what the world says and what even the religious people say is a successful life. Even what those who are going to win at life, he says, hey, it's completely opposite of what you think it is. It's completely opposite of that. And so the big idea that we want to wrap our head around tonight is what our culture calls a blessed life or a good life or winning at life is a cursed life, and a blessed, successful life is radically countercultural as we follow Jesus, right? Jesus said it is completely the opposite. It goes against everything that you will long for. It goes against everything that the world will tell you, everything that those around you will tell you, everything that our society says is valuable. What he's saying is, what is really winning at life? What is a blessed life? A life that you say, man, I look back and I say, man, I have won at life. I have succeeded at life. He says it's completely different than what you think. And we're going to look over the next, this week and the next 4 weeks at kind of what does that look like? Like, what are the things he says, hey, if he is going to give us a roadmap of what that looks like, we want to follow that. So we're going to look at those and unpack those over the next 4 weeks. But tonight, we need to just work on flipping our mindset of what following him really is. What does success really look like? And so we're going to be in Matthew chapter 5. Tonight, basically 2 verses, and then we'll go next week, we'll hit on from there. But Matthew chapter 5 is where he has been with crowds, and he's now about to talk with just his disciples, and he has this really, very radical, it made them uncomfortable to hear what he said, because it wasn't like, oh, hey, what you're doing, just tweak this a little bit. He was saying, hey, completely change your mindset on everything. And so we're going to look at Matthew chapter 5. If you have your Bible, turn there. If you need a Bible, we have some in the back you can use. If not, look on your phone. If you need one, we can give one to you, and you can keep it. It's yours. But Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, it says this. It says, seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them sayings, right? That's good. That's what we're wrapping our mind about this evening. There's crowds that have been surrounding him. There's crowds that had heard about everything that he had done. They knew what he was all about, and they wanted to be near him. And Jesus is kind of like, I've had enough of these crowds. I need some away time, right? I am a person who, I can be around people. I'm totally fine with it. It doesn't like exhausts me. Sometimes it's invigorating. Sometimes it's draining. It's just not. But my wife is an introvert. Like, she's very much like, I need a break from people for a little bit. Sometimes I'm people, right? So, but Jesus is here. He's basically like, hey, I see the crowd. I need some Jesus time. I need some time just for me. And so he goes away from this crowd. But in order to understand what he's doing, okay, so Jesus just left the crowd. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. We need to look back at, okay, what is going on there? Why is he leaving here? What is this thing that's happening, right? So we look back at the verses right before that, Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. It says, and he went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread, right? If you heal the people of all diseases, you're going to get kind of famous, right? His fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, those having seizures and paralytics, and he healed them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis, and from Jerusalem and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. So he's doing these things, and people are just flooding to him, right? He is preaching, and he's healing, he's casting demons out, he's doing these miracles and changing lives, and people's minds are being blown. Like, man, let's come and bring people to him. Like, I know someone who's sick. Bring him to this guy. He's healing everybody, right? Like, I've had this issue my entire life. I'm going to go see this guy because he's changed people's lives. And it's a huge, huge thing, and people are drawn to him. And everywhere he goes, the crowd is pressed in, and they're wanting just a piece of him. They're wanting to experience what has happened in these other things. And so there's this almost mob that just wants to be near him. And Jesus, right, goes away, and he withdraws with his disciples, and he teaches this profound truth that we'll get into in the next few weeks. But it's interesting that he has hundreds, probably thousands of people that are there surrounding him, and he goes away with 12 people to preach the most important sermon that he ever preached. All right? And just in terms of math, hey, just looking at odds, preaching to 1,000 people, it's going to hit on a few more people than if you preach to 12, right? If this is a super important thing, maybe tell as many people, and maybe it'll spread more. But he's very intentional with this, and we are going to look at why. So there's some important truths that we need to see that before we even get to the steps of what it looks like to follow him. These things are just radical, counter-cultural. There's some things that we can see and truths that we need to grasp when we look at what is happening here. So number one, desiring the benefits and blessings of God is different from desiring him, right? Wanting the good things of God is different from wanting God, all right? My 5-year-old, last night at dinner, this is not made up. He 100%, we're sitting there eating our dinner, and he looks at me, he goes, he's 5, Dad, I'm going to need a moment with you. I'm like, oh, all right. And then my wife is sitting there, she goes, what do you want to talk to Dad about? He goes, in private. And it was something very ridiculous about are we getting donuts on Thursday or something? But it was not that big a deal. But it was, hey, Dad, I'm going to need your time, all right? I need a moment with you. I need to be with you. I desire your attention right here. I desire to be with you. But then there's also times where, say I'm holding cookies. My children desire the object that I'm holding, the gift, the benefit that they can grab. I could be Spider-Man holding them and they wouldn't care. I could be a 17-foot tall gorilla and they wouldn't notice. They are after the cookies. And so there's a difference between desiring the benefits and the good things that someone has and desiring them. There's a difference in that, right? And we see that very clearly. We just read verses 23 through 25 that talk about this crowd that say, hey, he's healing people. I want that. Or he's changing things in their lives, issues they had, people that had legs that didn't work that now have legs that work. I would love for him to do something amazing like that in my life. I'd love the benefits of that. And again, it's not bad to want those things, right? There are things about yourself that you say, man, I wish God would fix this in my life. I wish he'd fix this in my family. I wish, those aren't bad things to want. But don't confuse wanting the things that God gives us with wanting him and desiring him. They're very separate things, right? So we see that, okay, there's this crowd that wants these things, but then look before that, verse 18 through 22. All right, we hop back just a little bit, and it's when Jesus is first calling his like disciples. So there was a point that Jesus was born, he grew up, he worked with his dad, and then at some point he starts his ministry, but he's just him. And he goes out and he has to find these disciples, and he goes out and he's choosing them and saying, hey, I want you to follow me. I want you to be a part of what I'm doing. So this is where he goes to find these guys, right? And so it's throughout all of the like Gospels, you can see these different accounts. But here, verse 18 says, while walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. They were doing what fishermen do. Like, it makes sense, right? And he said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. But immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. All right? There's a very, very big difference between these groups of people. We have these guys that are fishing that Jesus calls, and then there's this crowd that sees him doing these miracles. And they both are with Jesus, but they're both present in that same space. But their responses are very different. All right? With the crowd, it's Jesus. We want you to heal us. We want these good things. We want these amazing things that you can do. We want that in our life. We want the benefits of being near you. And then with these four guys who are fishing, Jesus didn't do anything. Like he was literally walking on the beach. Something anyone who's ever been to a beach has done. Nothing special about what he was doing. He was walking on a beach and said, follow me. Right? Just a little tip, if you're ever on the beach and some guy walks up to you and says, follow me, don't. Tell a trusted adult and stay away from that person, right? This is kind of like, we think, oh, yeah, it's Jesus, but no, it was a very strange thing, right? If you're walking and you're working, right? You work at Deerberg's, you're putting fruit on the shelves. Some guy comes up to you, just walking by, picks up an apple, follow me. You're like, your first thought is not, yes. Like, if it is, you probably shouldn't be out without a trusted adult, okay? But, right, it is kind of this radical thing. It's something that's like, hey, everything within them should be saying, no, I probably shouldn't do this. This is my job. Why should I leave this? But they leave and they follow him. And they completely abandon. One of them, right, are these two guys, they're there with their dad, working for their dad, a.k.a. their boss. And then, peace out, Dad, and leave him. Dad's there, I guess I'll fish alone, right? And they completely leave. So there's a very different responses here. With the disciples, with these four guys who he says, come and follow me, they start a brand new life in that moment. Not because Jesus did some magical things, not because he did the miracles, not because he healed people, not because they were blown away by the things of God, but because they encountered the person of God. And their desire was for more of him. Right? With this crowd, they were, hey, blown away. He did some amazing things, but their desire was for the things he could do for them. And they wanted the things of God. Right? For us, it's, God, I want you to fix my life. God, I want this to be better. I want you to make things better. I want you to be like this magic, like genie that can help me when I need help. But there's a difference between wanting God to help you in your life and you wanting him. There's a big difference in that. Being near Jesus does not mean that you follow him. Because these people, right, you're right there. You can touch Jesus. You're shoulder to shoulder with him. The crowd is pressing you against him. You're seeing him touch someone's hand that is broken and it's healed. You're seeing him touch someone's eyes that do not see and then their eyes see. Right? He's helping a lame man stand up and that guy walks. You see it. It's right in front of you. You're there. But they never experienced a desire for God. They never experienced a desire for him. Why? I don't know. But we know that they didn't follow him from there, right? That they got the things they wanted and went home. That they showed up and got the benefits of God and left. But here's the thing. They thought they chose well. But those guys that were on that beach at their jobs who said, we're leaving everything to go follow him, they're actually the ones that won. Why? Because the value system is completely flipped. Or the guy who says, hey, I didn't used to walk before and now I do, I think I won. So, well, you got something great in the moment. But you walked away from the God of the universe who says, this is the life I've created you for. Being near Jesus doesn't mean you follow him. People he touched and were healed didn't follow. Hearing him speak or witnessing his miracles, they didn't follow. Right? For you and I, going to church, doing church things, doing Christian things, being around the things of God doesn't mean you're following him. You can have come here every day since you came out of your mother's womb, every time the church is open, and be here. You can own 73 Bibles. You could have Christian t-shirts. You could have every radio preset in your car set to Joy FM. Don't. It's a complete waste of presets. But you could do all these Christian things that you consider, hey, good Christian things, and you can be around the things of God and never know him. Be very careful of judging if you're following him or not based on your proximity to the things of him. All right? But the disciples followed Jesus not because of the miracles, they accepted his invitation. The crowd followed like just the performance and the production. Man, he did these awesome things, so I'm going. We can fall into that as well. We can be like, well, I really enjoy my small group. I get something out of it, so I go. No, that's not why we go, right? Because for every moment that you enjoy, there maybe I don't get anything out of my small group, so should you stop going? No, and I go and I do these things and I connect with God because I desire him. I spend time in his word, not hoping that a miracle comes into my life, but hoping that I understand and know him more. Because my desire is for him. Because I know and I've grasped and I understood whether it fits with what I want or not, that his value system is totally different and I can trust him. Right? So number two would be, right, that the difference between following and association is action. Right? What's the main difference between these groups of people, this crowd that wanted to be around his miracles and these disciples who left their nets and followed him? Is they acted on something. Right? When you and I are confronted with the presence of God, when you and I are confronted with God and who he is, right? We have a choice to make. We have a response that we give, whether we know and decide or not, right? You hear about the things of God. You hear about what God has done for you. You hear about God's plan for your life. You hear about the gospel and what Jesus has done, that, hey, God made you. Sin enters the world. You're separated from God. God made a way by sending the Son to pay for your sins and mine, dying on the cross, and that we have the option to choose him. When I hear that, when I know that, I have an option of what I do with that. And these two groups are a great picture of what that looks like, what those options really are. Because I don't think most people that say, hey, I'm interested in God, I'm interested in following him, I am interested in what he's all about, most people are not going to say, I completely reject that and I run from it, I want nothing to do with it, right? That's not an accurate deal. I think more accurate is very similar to what this group is. I think he's awesome. I think he's engaging. I am drawn to him, and that's great. And when I need something, that's a guy I'm going to look to and think about. But because I have what I need right now, because I feel good about where I'm at, I don't need to do anything else with him. And I want to be associated with him when I have a need, right? But I don't really need to be around him. Like every time something comes up, and I know that's the guy I'm going to. Whereas the group of guys that were on the beach fishing, their response to him, not to a miracle, not to anything, but just to a simple invitation was, yeah, I'm coming. I'm all in. They literally in one moment quit their job, left their families and all of their earthly possessions. That was step one, right? Step one is there. Okay, you've done this. All right, I'm going to do some healings for these crowds and whatnot. They're going to not really want to be a part of what I'm doing. And then we'll really get to the hard part of following me. Right? What Jesus values, what he says is winning, is so different from what you and I would do. right? You have this group of disciples, they acted. They said, yes, I am moved to action by an encounter with Jesus. I am moved to change everything in my life to match up with him because I know the value system that I'm running for isn't what he's about, and I want to be what he's about. The crowd said, that's great, it's fantastic. I like the way my life is. Being near someone doesn't mean that you know them. Being in close proximity to someone does not mean there's a relationship, does not mean you have a desire. I went to school in Ohio, about an hour north of Cincinnati, very near Dayton, where we go on a mission trip. And we would look for very cheap things to do, because I went through a stage in life in college where it was like, let's check that bank account. It was not when I could check online. I had to go to the ATM and put in like, okay, $5, yes, all right, we're good. Or I'm about to go to like Chipotle. Can I afford guac or not? Like, we need to make these tough choices in life. And so we look for cheap, fun things to do. Well, the Cincinnati Reds baseball team, they're about an hour away, and they sell tickets to the very top row of their stadium. $5, you can't buy them online, just show up at the gate for $5, and you get in. Oh, that's fantastic. We'll go to a baseball game. Barry Bonds was playing then. Like, you couldn't go down and like heckle him, like, because everyone wanted to do that, so they wouldn't let you go do that. But I remember that we went to one game. We literally have seats. We're not like, hey, top row, like we're top row and corner. Like, you look down and there's parking lot. Like, we're so far away you couldn't really see, but we never sat in those seats because it's a Reds game. No one goes to those, so we got to sit wherever we wanted, just not near Barry Bonds. But so we go and we're there early because we're getting our $5 worth. When the gates open, we're there and we're gonna go down. Maybe we'll talk to some players or something like that. So we go down and they're playing the Houston Astros, and this is 2005 or 6. You remember around that time, Albert Pujols hit a home run that I don't think has landed yet off the Houston Astros that went over a train or something or other at their thing. So we're there, and we go down, and the Astros pitchers are down there. I mean, there's just a wall between us. They're about as close as me and LeBlanc are, and we're just sitting there, and we see this guy. His name on the back of the jersey says Astacio. It's kind of like Hispanic, because you got to put a little ring on it. And there was a guy that was a well-known baseball player at the time named Pedro Astacio. Like, oh, Pedro! Like, just being idiots. There's four or five of us thinking, hey, maybe he'll come sign a ball for us. Maybe he'll just say hi. I'm like, yeah, because we're stupid. And so we're yelling for him. He's not paying attention to us. I don't know why, right? Because we're idiots, all right? So we're yelling at him, like, we're Pedro, and we're this close. Like, we are screaming. It's Cincinnati. It's not like the crowd is like roaring. It's an hour and a half before like game time. Like, he definitely hears us. So we're like, Pedro, and nothing. Another guy comes up. Turns out Astros closer Brad Lidge, who gave up that home run to Albert Pujols, right? This guy was like the all-star closer, best closer in baseball. I'm thinking, like, this is even better. Brad Lidge is looking at us, coming to talk to us, like, yeah! And he walks up, and it's not even like that far. He's like the wall's there. He's on the other side of the wall. We're like this far apart. Like, Brad Lidge! He looks up at us. I think he's from Texas. If not, at least in my mind, he looked at this big like Texan. He's just like, fellas, you big fans of Pedro Astacio? We're like, yeah, Pedro Astacio. He goes, you idiots, that's Ezekiel Astacio. And we're like, Brad Lidge called us idiots, yeah. But right, we were so close, right? Brad Lidge and that guy hang out all the time, right? They're on the road together, they sit in the bus together. We were just as close, but there was a very big difference in our relationship there. Being near someone does not mean you have a relationship. I have awkward stories with Major League baseball players like that. There was another time, Josh Hamilton, Texas Rangers, also lost a World Series to the Cardinals. And he was the league MVP for a while. Well, I was at a conference, and he spoke at this conference. He's the last speaker of the conference. And so we're leaving. It's in downtown Atlanta, so we think, you know what, we're in Atlanta. We're headed back. We're going to Chick-fil-A. It's like better in Atlanta than it is anywhere else. So we go to Chick-fil-A. Who happens to be there? Josh Hamilton's there with his family. And so I'm like, you idiots, why would you not sit by Josh Hamilton? So I order my food. I'm the first one in my group to order. I order, and I go sit, back to back. I could, if I wanted to, I could reach out and touch his hair, but that would creep him out, so I didn't do it. and I don't want to touch his hair, right? But it's like I'm so close to him. I'm literally like back to back. I can hear him. He's talking with his family and whatever friends he had there that were not going to be as cool as me. And me and him would be great friends if he'd only just turn around and say hi, right? So I'm back to back with him here. But here's the thing. He didn't ever know I was there, and the rest of my group didn't come sit there on the other side of the restaurant, so I had to do this like walk of shame, like, all right. See Mr. Hamilton? No, right? I was so close, but that guy does not know that I ever existed. But as followers of Christ, or as people that want to be, but don't want to act on it, we can get this view of, I am close to God. I am close to the things of God. I am near Him. I've showed up to church. I own a Bible. I do all of these things because I want the benefits of God in my life. But if I don't want Him, I am never going to be moved to act and do hard, difficult things that He will call me to after step one. And so why does, in verse 1 of chapter 5, it says, seeing the crowds, He went up on the mountain, and when He sat down, His disciples came to Him, right? He goes up, and His disciples come to Him, and He says, okay, now I'm about to lay the hard things on you. Now I'm about to really say the difficult things. And if you're one of these disciples, you're asking, why didn't you tell everybody else? And His answer is going to be, because they weren't ready to handle it. Because they couldn't even do the first thing. You guys have done the first step. And until you're willing to take that first step of saying, I am moved to act by wanting more of the person of Jesus, that whatever in my life I need to get rid of is gone, is out. I'm moving on, and I'm following Him. Whatever value system that He puts me on, I'm trusting Him on that. Because why? There's something about Him that's different than anything else you'll ever experience. There's something about being in the presence of God Himself that will change everything about your life. So with that in mind, right, He gathers these disciples to Himself, and He begins to tell you this. And basically He is summing up here, this is what winning looks like. This is what a success in life looks like. All right? Over and over and over again, He talks about, like, you will inherit this, the kingdom. He said, hey, if you want to be a king, if you want to be an heir, this is what this looks like. You want the kingdom, this is what you do. And we're going to unpack that in the next few weeks, but we have to grasp, hey, am I willing to take step one first? And step one is, hey, I cannot be content with being near Him or being around Him or wanting the things of Him. I have to want and desire Him to the point where I move to act. And the question would simply be, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to act on that? Because that's step one. We have to be people moved to actions by Jesus.